George Lee's working again on the Sabbath. I've just sent myself an email. I'm going to open it. Listen to this. This is about the French diplomats and the French financiers who run the IMF, who work in America, who rape people on both sides of the Atlantic, and when they get acquitted of rape, nobody's able to convict them of anything in financial services frauds, but they are massively good at it for decades. All of them are the leaders of the IMF. Yeah? Strauss-Kahn passed it on to Ms Lagarde. Huge frauds against the world's people, and laundering it all into that street in Washington that I talked to Field McConnell about only a fortnight ago. Okay, so this is incredible. There is no fault line on the east coast of America, but when this bastard was acquitted, they had a major quake in the courtroom. Let me show you it. Look at their faces, they blanch a bit.
For generations.
A rare earthquake to hit the US East Coast adds its own drama to the Strauss-Kahn announcement. District Attorney Cyrus Vance and others quickly evacuated the New York courtroom along with other officers in the area. Measuring 5.8, it was one of the strongest quakes ever recorded in the region, but there were no immediate reports of deaths, although there were some injuries. The epicenter was about 64 kilometers northwest of Richmond, Virginia, in the town of Mineral. In Washington, frightened office workers spilled out onto the streets. Some first reactions were to think it was a terrorist attack.
Scary. That was so scary. I'm trying to figure out what happened. I still want to know, was it an earthquake or something?
And even the center of US political power, the White House, wasn't immune.
So, there you go. Just an everyday trial for him. Yeah, he was acquitted. He was gonna run for president. And the man who ran for president got an even shakier time. Let's see if we can find that video. Okay. So that was the East Coast being shaken by the earthquake. Let's just go into my inbox now and find the email that I've sent myself with my data, and it's entitled Strauss-Kahn acquittal, earthquake, Hollande bungs ex-wife, Alnerly frauds. That's by the British government and the French government. Yeah, and let's just open it and start downloading the contents. Okay, Strauss-Kahn acquittal, earthquake, Hollande bungs ex-wife, Alnerly frauds consume both the French and the British government. That's Alnerly that we've told you about in Mrs Thatcher's regime, with Archie Hamilton as our private secretary and head of the Treasury. Yeah, and it takes you into Melrose and Porteous, Alex McCall, and all of the massive lot about. Yeah, and John Lamont wrote to me the other evening saying that he could not intervene in my issues about my persecution in my divorce case. He attempts to section me as the world's most intelligent and insightful man by the doctors that interlock with Miss Tom at Streets Ahead. Yeah, it's the Kelso surgery doctors, former employees. It is the former policeman who's now trained as a doctor. Yeah, and Basil, what's his name? Switzer. Yeah, that's the policeman, was Dr. Ian England. 500 hits on that video in 2 days. Yeah, so John Lamont cannot intervene in any of the issues because they are law cases and still ongoing. He is now complicit in Trident 3 and Trident 4 scandals, the Iraq arms issues, the interlocks between Rifkind and Chilcot at Abraxa, and the Rothschilds, Lothian 50, Ponzi Empire in Lothian Road and Parland, Auckland. Yeah, but I know he is morally correct and will not be working on a Sunday. My sectioning video has over 500 hits in just 2 days. Have a nice weekend. That goes to John Lamont and Callum Kerr, MP. John Lamont is an MSP and he's preparing for his election soon. I'm going to give him a leg up if he does the decent thing. Right then, and there is the Hollonde data, and it's quite shocking. Yeah, because Hollande, on his first flight as the president, was hit by lightning and had to turn around, and he was headed off to talk terms with Ms Merkel. And all of the tabs that I will show you on this show you how liberal and free-minded the elites are when they're in financial transactions in France. Right then, so that's uploading. We can shut that down, I think, or we might have to go back to find the videos on the other topics. Courtroom earthquake, no, that one we can close. We need to look for Hollande. I think that must be on the other tab. French leader Francois Hollande. Here we go. Right then, I'll get the camera. He and Strauss-Kahn are socialists. It is incredible. Both of them label themselves as socialists, and a contender for the Prime Minister job that Francois Hollande got was his missus, and her name is something to do with the royals, but my memory's so frail I'm going to have to resort to the OneNote data that we've got. Okay, so that's going to take ages to load. There's my attempts to find Dominique Andre Struss-Kahn on the business register. You get a couple of hits, but they're trivial, which is why he operates out of America all the time. Yeah, and the people in the domestic sector, in the cleaning sector, in the hotels are in a highly dangerous place, because he can make QUAKES out of his rapist actions, yeah, where there is not even a fault line. And that weekend of the trial and his acquittal, there was a massive flood and the whole of Manhattan Island was underwater. I know there is a God, or several of them, and they're really, really powerful and insightful people. Okay, so let's watch what he did to Hollande when he took off. French leader Francois, here we go. Oh, this is about the affair though, I think. Oh no, this is the one about the airplane. There's the actress affair on that tab. Yeah, and I've got a list of French Prime Ministers there. And I'm going to take you back as far as de Gaulle, because you know a lot of that story already. De Gaulle spent his life in wartime quite safely living in Berkhamsted.
The plane was struck, according to Reuters, turned back around, it was on its way to Berlin. We don't know if it's landed in Paris yet, and we don't know if he's going to take another flight or wait until tomorrow. Do we know how he's doing? Is everybody okay on this plane? Do we know? Probably everybody is fine. It's not unusual. I mean, it is unusual, but it's not necessarily a very dangerous thing for a plane to be hit by lightning. I'm no, aeronautics expert, but everybody seems to be fine, and the plane has landed or is about to impact in Paris. So the weather is good today. Okay, well, and let's hope this is not a sign of things to come. And it's the first day. It's the first day of the job, and this war is going to face how to deal with this.
So, sometime since I flew, because I'm impoverished now, I'm a socialist. He pretends he's a socialist, which is why the plane got hit by lightning on his inaugural flight. Yeah, and this is the shenanigans around his divorce. Yeah, and I can tell you what the divorce is all about, because he founds his own bank, a socialist bank, and he makes his wife, within the first few days, a director on it. And when they part, yeah, they're able to afford a prostitute as the woman in the middle, and they have massive savings at the bank which no one's allowed to know about because French banking is strictly secret. Even the shareholders are not allowed to be identified at any stage for fear of insolvency, losses. And all of the poor people's pension funds, because of all of the busted issues that John Lamont ignores in Lothian Road and in financial centres all around the world, none of the people get a life. That is the socialist voters. And you can see why he's got such a cheesy grin. Let's have a look at his second woman. They've got 4 children. It's unbelievable, grandiose, the fraud that they have perpetrated. Right then. So shut him. There's Dominique Andre. Let's get the actresses and the prostitution fees out of the way. John Lamont says that nothing can be intervened in divorce cases. Even although the frauds that I'm reporting against the Scottish people and the British people and all of the people that are duped by the Chipping Norton set, who's in league entirely with my wife's cause to silence me as an activist. And Miss Tom got really jumpy when I began to cite the Streets Ahead details on the people that she interlocked with at that time. She's now dropped out of Streets Ahead, but let's stay on international fraud for a few hours. It's been a scintillating weekend, since I informed the gods that I was not dropping the arms to Iraq issues. I was not dropping any of the issues. I was not dropping the Stephen Andrew Hancock's OBE frauds that alarmed my wife so much, and that was why my wife wrote to her solicitor saying that she had been refused access when I said I would give her that. I denied her access on the basis of her total lack of trust because of the crimes that I had reported in the email that I responded with a picture of her brother and the inflation of £200 worth of investment in shares by their own company being worth £300,000 by the end of the financial year. That's one transaction. Right then. So, Hollande's actress affair, French President Francois Hollande caught in love triangle sex scandal. Right then, and I'll start.
Photos in a celebrity magazine published last week purporting to show a nocturnal visit by Francois Hollande to a mistress have embroiled the French president in a scandal over his personal life and raised doubts over his ability to do his job.
He should be this man who is the President of France, concentrating all his energy, all his efforts to fight unemployment, to create jobs, to relaunch the economy. And we know that this cannot be the case because his private life is a bit too complex.
While the French often say they don't care about their leaders' private lives, readers quickly cleared out kiosks of the magazine Closer when it published the images of what it said was a helmeted Hollande secretly visiting actress Julie Gaillet.
The fact is that this is the most unpopular president in the history of the Fifth Republic. And he wanted to impress the French with the fact that he was a normal man, that he was a man of dignity, simplicity, moral rigor. And suddenly the French are discovering that he is like others, but in a less glorious manner, in really a more ridiculous manner. A president who has to hide under a helmet, driving
Though he has 4 children with former presidential candidate Ségolène Royal, the situation has been further complicated by the fact that Valérie Trierweiler, Hollande's long-term partner, was hospitalized hours after allegations of his affairs surfaced.
This is the first time ever in French history that the lady occupying the Élysée Palace is not the wife of the president.
So the Valérie name's in it.
The president has an alleged.
And the woman that he loves is the socialist that ran for president against him, with the 4 children they have, and she was made director of the company. Yeah, it's a kind of mutual company. It's got unique secret rules yeah, that protect all of the boardroom from being identified. And it's really, really clever, which is why the entries on Dominique Andre Struss-Kahn are ever so frickin' difficult to find. Okay, there's one, but that is not him. If it is him, it's a very clever change in the name. Yeah, Dominique Andre Struss-Kahn, and you get Dominique Gaston Gordon Bon. If you look Dominique Strauss-Kahn up, you get nothing at all. And this is the global man who's the head of the IMF, and he needs 2 or 3 rape cases in his career to keep the law in the fiscal and economic sector off his back. But there is no real opposition there, as you now know, and John Lamont is very much aware that he is complicit in all of those facts. Yeah, and as an advisor to the Law Society in Scotland, he's going to have to watch that he does not get deeply embroiled in the complicity issues like Michael Moore and all of the people who have resigned, including Stephen House and McCaskill and all of the Scottish figureheads, and William Hague in London, in Westminster. Whole tranches of resignations now. Okay, so lots of sleaze, lots of trivia, and lots of Ponzi shelves. From the Thatcher regime, the same laundering companies called Alnerly, and it's the same companies that are used by the Scottish law firms, by Michael Moore, and the links to the Westminster Foundation for Democracy Limited, and even the Tweed Commissioners, or the Tweed Foundation, I think it is. Yeah, we'll take you to the website when the time is right. Okay, so you cannot find the French on Company Check, but I've got one of them, and it takes you into the Pickles family that are the Lib Dems, and the big man that was touching people up at the conference. Can you see how the false news covers the massive financial crimes? You may not remember the Lib Dems or Pickles touching up his female colleagues at the meetings. Yeah, this is what it covers. Right then, and there's the moralist in the press in France. Yeah, love triangle, sex scandal. Yeah, an aging man, a bit like Sepp Blatter, and you will soon see what it is that they are covering up. Okay, so we'll shut that one down too, and we'll have a look at the list of Prime Ministers. Because this one is the one that set up the bank that is now right in the heart of London. Yeah, with 1,500 employees, with no registered directors. Yeah, Francois Mitterrand, 1981 to 1995. And that bank is right in the heart, right next door to the Bank of England, and to the headquarters for Alnerly Incorporations Limited, same postcode. There are maps later on. Okay, so this is the Public Investment Banks, and its legal form is a BPI, Public Investment Bank. They twist it around so it becomes Banque Publique Investment Français. Yeah, and its legal form is Anonymous Society. You bet it's anonymous. I cannot find any details of any of the culprits except the appointed CEO. Yeah, and he's the one that takes you into the pickles linkage. Yeah, right then. And what we've got here, so this is the one I can find. Dufourc is the general manager, in fact, and it's run from a place called Masons Alfort. Yeah, shareholders are the French state, 50%, and the Caisse des Pots, 50%, a public, industrial and commercial BPI group. Okay, loads of fancy descriptors. Yeah, right then. And I don't think I've got anything highlighted on that, but there's Hollande, came into power as a relatively anonymous person. 2012, I was becoming a mature activist even at that time. Yeah, and it's quite obvious that socialism in France is fascism everywhere else. Okay, so the lightning strikes were on the first flight, and the BNP Public Investment Bank is his brainchild. He puts his own missus on the board, and all of the others are anonymous. You've just seen that. For fear of insolvency and liabilities. So that's his 30-year wife with 4 kids sacrificed quickly, with a massive bung for shopping trips for the whole of the rest of their lives in separation, in inverted commas. Yeah, I don't know what the kids do. They've got equally balanced genders, and I believe that the pressure that is on all of these political leaders to sin like this, it's what makes them the leaders in the first place. There's his missus, and she's got a royal connection in her name. She is Ségolène Royal, and she's one of the best dressed over 50 women. Yeah, and France is really good at trivia. Yeah, and you understand the catwalk and the trivia jokes. The catwalk is narrow in the cathedrals in Paris. Yeah, in the arrondissement, the Aryan master race frauds, because the catwalk is built on the heads of the saints. Yeah, and there is all you can find on this family on Company Check. It's her electoral commitments, yeah, as the socialist contender to be the rival against her husband in the same socialist election. Yeah, and he got the nod, and all of a sudden they're torn into very wealthy division. Okay, right then. And so these are trivial, they're non-registered companies, there are no details. This is on the European companies that are just her constituency funds. Okay, the rest of it is undeclared, and all of it is tucked away in the havens using the techniques you now know so well. So here's the public investments. Oh, we've done that. Okay, and it was launched by the new president in was created by the Ayrault government by the law of 31st December 2012, the year he was elected. It's chaired by Jean-Pierre Jouet and directed by Nicolas Dufourc, 3-4, references 3 and 4, former CFO and number 2 Cap Gemini. You should see the frauds in the shareholding, where they've got ownership of the companies running up to about 120 to 150% of the company. Instead of having a pie chart which is like a pie, it looks like a pie with a couple of teeth sticking out, or lovely tits. Yeah, and all of it is a massive fraud. Okay, and then you've got the anonymous tag. Oh, sorry, it's at the bottom of the slider. This is on the French business rules and your capacity to create a board that no one's allowed to know. And there it is. So it's been translated, and it's quite a pidgin translation, but this is the meaning of the anonymous society. A corporation is so called because its name does not reveal the names of the shareholders whom it can even ignore the identity when the securities of the companies are bared. Its status partially protects its shareholders in case of bankruptcy. Okay? Kinda sleazy, don't you think? And we should find that statement that the president made his missus the director of that bank. I think that will be highlighted when I saw it, highlighted at the top. But let's just get the dates and the details of that. It doesn't look as if I've highlighted any of it actually. Anyway, these are the Wikipedia entries, and you might, let's have a look at hers. I might have highlighted that one instead. And you can see what she's done. So she's Minister of Ecology, Sustainable Development in the Valian. I did not know that the previous thing was a Val driven regime. Yeah, nothing surprises me now. Okay, Minister of the Environment and Way of Life, and she's working as the Minister of Ecology under Francois Hollande. There's the Prime Minister at that time, Manuel Valls. It's a bloke. And there's Francis Mitterrand, who was the boss for her, yeah, when she was in office in 1992 to 93, and he's the one that launches that massive London bank with 1,500 employees right next door to the Bank of England, yeah, and right next door to a massive European bank that has no one accountable for any of what it does. And it is it's run out of the Czech Republic and Eastern Europe initially, yeah, as a development agency. So there's Dominique Strauss-Kahn and the other socialist. Both of them trade under that label, like Hollande, which is why he got hit by lightning. And there she is as the best dressed over 50 in the country. Socialist heavyweights Dominique Strauss-Kahn, Jacques Lang, and Laurent Fabius, and Francois Hollande. Yeah, all of them massively at the trough, stealing from the world's people. Okay, and all the jargon about Luddites, and the little one being disgraced before him, Sarkozy, also in sexual scandals. Okay, I cannot find the bit about her being appointed to be banking board member. I think we'll have to go back to his data and look for where he created that bank. First Secretary of the Socialist Party. Mayor of Toul. (2007) elections with his wife. And let's see, where is the banking issues? So the IMF is mentioned there. Strauss-Kahn's arrest on sexual assault, you've just seen that. Valls and the European Parliament issues. Renewable energy, all the green scams. Nothing about the new bank. pension reform, Mali, approval ratings, personal life. There's the 4 children, Thomas, Clemence, Julienne and Flora. There's the sexual scandal. There's all his awards in the legions of this, that and the other. All of the fascist countries adore what he does, but I cannot see the banking reference. Let's go down the tabs in case it's further down. Okay, so you've seen the secret society that is the French boardroom for this type of company. I want you now to have a look at the British scene. Okay, this is my web page and the pictures of all of those scandals involving Melrose and Porteous, the Douglas Homes of Coldstream, Douglas Humes. Oh sorry, we're down at the bottom of the page. If the resolution is not good here, I'm going to have to actually go to the website. Okay, and these tabs are really, really sinister. That is the transactions of Alnerly Incorporations Limited. These are the British ones. Yeah, there are way over 3,000 Ponzi shells, and possibly more, because I've stopped looking when I got to 3,000. Okay, and this is the French government are using it, the British government are using it, the Westminster Foundation for Democracy is using it. Can you see that? There is Right Honourable Sir Walter Menzies Mingus Campbell, the Right Honourable Sir Timothy Allen Davin Sainsbury, the Right Honourable Sir Archibald Gavin Hamilton, Mrs Thatcher's private secretary, Coldstream Guard fan, yeah, all from the same cabal, with members of Birmingham Football Club's directorate, yeah, and all of those power brokers that we've talked about already and we mention in the video that is posted further up. Okay, directorial sins in the Ponzi shells. So listen to Gordon Bowden, what Gordon Bowden says about Michael Moore and the Parliamentary Foundation for Democracy Limited. So, Michael Moore MP, directorial sins in the Ponzi sector by Gordon Bowden. Oh, by the way, I have your Lib Dem dirtbag, Michael Kevin Moore, by the short and curlies, aka his nuts. Keep this for your evidence. It will cause some to throw themselves under trains or look for a length of hosepipe they can attach to a car exhaust. His director mates Henry Campbell Bellingham via Pathfinder Minerals plc and multitudes of Pathfinder subsidiaries is 100% another money laundering Ponzi scam, and Nicholas Simon, true to Pan African Resources plc, which of course is 55% owned group subsidiary of Metarex Limited, yeah, and a whole host of Nico Schäfers and South African names, Mr. Douw van der Merwe Viljoen, yeah, and the billion-dollar Metarex frauds, okay, and that is an MP, Henry Campbell Bellingham, recorded as Challenger Oil Services Limited, and that's the Ponzi scam that they front. There's Kevin Moore's directorial details. You should see what he does on the P&O company before I forced him out of office. Right then, so let's see if there's anything on Alnerly at the bottom. Okay, and all of them have been accused of all of this. Gordon Bowden's MPs in Derby were engaged on all of these themes, and let me take you up and show you the picture of. It would be better if I went to the website, wouldn't it? So let's do that, so you can see the high resolution images of the dead man's boots in Coldstream, which is John Lamont's constituency. Yeah, right next door to Sir Alec Douglas, yeah, and right next door to the Treaty of Belgium that we talked about last week. That's the deal with Longshanks, that Scotland can never be free. Okay, there's Michael Moore lounging in his constituency office door. I've made several videos of being locked out of that building and the DSS is just round the corner. Yeah, and because I'm happily married to my life right up to the present month, yeah, then I was unable to draw down any redundancy payments. Yeah, as the six-figure salary earner for all 22 years of our marriage, none of that counts at the DSS. It's only what you earn in the year before. Yeah, it's a huge stitch up, and they pretend that people who come from Europe and are now getting defamed because of the diasporas across the Med and out of Syria again, yeah, it's all premeditated to tear the people apart. There's the JRG Financial Consultancy Limited that is registered at his Riverside house, Galashiels, okay? And it takes you down into a massive set of interlocks, okay? Company summary: JRG Financial Consultancy, appointed 92, resigned 2007, and the People's IFA Company it was dissolved in 2007 too, just before the banks were crashed. Okay, right then, and here we've got Archibald Hamilton, the Coldstream Guards, and him being parliamentary private secretary to Margaret Thatcher from 87 to 88. Okay, let's go down until we see Alnerly. There's the video that shows you that the Melrose and Porteous director, who they agreed was complicit and they needed to drop out of my law case, yeah, even though it was still ongoing, John Lamont, and nothing was settled, they told me that my wife had an open and shut case and I was going to get divorced and I was guilty of bad behaviours, and these are the behaviours, all of them registered by Miss Tom under the same document number. That's the document number for all of that massive pile. Yeah, every one of the documents has the same number: PT/EL/Lees V01/01, transaction number 1 in their fraud, to silence me and to impoverish me. Okay, so he's Mrs Thatcher's private secretary. On that board there you can see the directors of the Westminster Foundation for Democracy Limited, with links to JP Morgan and George Soros on the board. Okay, and that's actually a video, you can watch that for yourself. Okay, it's called The Legal Firm, the legal firm and the local mafia /Freemasonic cabal, and the links to PMs, Lords, MPs, Soros, JP Morgan and the Westminster Foundation for Democracy Ponzi empire. That's the Alnerly issues. Let's find it. Okay, so there's the director and secretaries on that JRG company. Okay, and that is Henson's Alan John Reid, Mr Alexander James McCall. I encoded him for a time, but the law firms in Scotland are so twisted that all of the truth's coming out. Mr Andrew Douglas Home, Mr Andrew Keith Rayner, that's Lord Markham of Ukraine and the family that run the Crown oil frauds out of the Rochdale region, like the other fat Lib Dem, Cyril Smith. Mr David Gold, Birmingham City Football Club, Mr David Robert Leask, Mr David Taylor, Mr Francis Allen Littlejohn Alstead, Mr Gordon John Sutherland. And if this one is my rugby hero, I'll be very disappointed, but it may well be. Mr John Young Rutherford, Miss Lena Glass, the Right Honourable Sir Archie Gavin Hamilton. There's Alexander James McCall, registered 1 to 3 Cambridge Street, Edinburgh, and he gave me my money back at the lawyers. Okay, JRG Consultancy Financial Limited, and there we've got the graphs of their transaction, and the People's IFA Limited. And Archie was educated at Eton, and he's followed his father into the Coldstream Guards 1960 to 1962. Can you guess where our army was then, and where Sir Alec Douglas Home was then? Yeah, the Garden of Eden, which is Aden, now the Yemen. Yeah, and there's the links to Kensington Palace, and the Freemasons who send them all around the world so that the troops cannot return. Right then, let's try and scroll down in a measured way. Yeah, they've still got a shop in the High Street in Coldstream, John Lamont's Coldstream, commemorating all of the war dead, and that's on the lapel of the policeman. Yeah, the policeman like Dr. Fingland, who tried to section me for the 3rd time last week. Okay, the companies are Saladin, and this is the massive charitable scams in Africa. Okay, and they're huge. Saladin Security, oh, it's private security firms, yeah, to make it look as if they're ever so peaceful there and everything's ever so good. So we've got Saladin Security, Afghanistan Limited, Veteran Security Services, South Sudan. That's the Corporal Jones joke again. Right then, so Archibald Gavin Hamilton, Siam Selective Growth Trust, GRG Financial Consultancy Limited, Crown Ridge Industries Limited, First Philippine Securities Limited, First Philippine Investment Trust PLC, Saladin Holdings Limited, the Woodgate Farms Dairy, Leafield Engineering, the Westminster Foundation for Democracy Limited, with all of those parliamentarians and lords on it. Right then, and here's Andrew Douglas Home, the Abbotsford Trading Company Limited, GRG Financial Consultancy, John Hogarth Limited. Came up in some of my recent conversations about people called Hogarth, real estate owners in my town, people that used to be in the rubber empires upon which the sun would never set, and some of them, sadly, their parents committed suicide. The Tweed Foundation. And I just heard also this weekend, I don't know whether it's true, that Lord Sanderson of Bowden's son actually threw himself off a bridge, but that could have been a bungee jump. I have no idea, and I'm not really interested in small talk. I'm trying to look at the global economy, as everyone now knows, including the Kelso surgery sectioning team. 500 hits in 2 days. Tweed Beats Limited, the Abbotsford Freemasons, the Abbotsford Trust, everything run with tax evasion as the first priority. Short name Andrew Douglas Home, year of birth 1950, Director ID 900 141 310, The Lees, Coldstream. Berwickshire, United Kingdom, TD12 4LF, David Gold, the Birmingham City football man, 906 198 176. Caterham, Surrey, United Kingdom. Loads of dosh at the bank. 50 million. 164 million combined assets. And here's the Michael Grade interview, on all of the biggest Ponzi scheme that I've ever seen in my life. And then you get the Von Essen hotels that are in charge of crashing all of the big hotels all around Scotland, including Ednam House, which is pivotal for Kelso's tourist economy. And sadly, the fishing has diminished in quality in the last 2 years, and the tourist economy is very much threatened by all of that. Here's the Dalhousie Scottish castles that claim to own it, but they're actually owned by one of the big four auditors. They're in insolvency proceedings already, and the previous owner, the Brookses, have bailed out with the dosh. And they were in Colditz, and you know the gravity of that now. They were in Colditz with the legless rugby players, Mike Biggar's dad, and Mike Biggar also ended up legless because he was in a car crash. He's involved in the London Scottish frauds with the Hastings man, and all of them get what they deserve in the end. Russia-UK Dialogue, Clevedon Hotel Limited, that's the Bristol business empires and the slaving empires. Russia-UK Dialogue, Premier Oil, that will be one of the Rayner scandals, And you should go onto the Crown Oil call line and ask them where their oil comes from. They do not know, because they do not have any. All they do is sell coupons and defraud people. That's Lord Markham of Ukraine, the Rayner family. Von Essen Investments LSE Asia Limited, Lower Slaughter Manor County House Hotel Limited, right in Chipping Norton, right next door to my brother-in-law's old home. Yeah, in Lower Swell, right next door to the Bunny Girls. Yeah, a joke about the Stocks House, right next door to Hertfordshire, and the Ashridge College where my wife trained, and the people who fish at Bourne Leisure out of Hemel Hempstead also trained, run by the Canadian British Prime Minister Bonar Law, one of the biggest 25 in the world. It, like the Borders College in Dubai, is registered as a charity for profiteering reasons. Buckland Manor County House Hotel, Medical Gas Solutions. Here's the Westminster Foundation, and there's Alnerly Incorporations Number 1 Limited. Baroness Elspeth Mohowe of Idleycote, Dr. Francis Clare de Souza, Dr. Michael Pinto Dushinsky, Sir Gavin Harry Laird, Sir Russell Johnston, the Lord Rogan of Lower Weir, the Lord James Norwich Arbuthnot, Speculative Society name, the Right Honourable Sir Archie Hamilton, Mrs. Thatcher's buddy, Right Honourable Sir Timothy Allen David Sainsbury, Right Honourable Sir Walton Mingus Campbell, and here we go down, and this is what I want you to see. Okay, this is Alnerly Incorporations Number 1 Limited. Look at it. Yeah, number 1985, 1981, 2011, 2028, 2032, 2095. Just a pump and dump operation run out of Cheapside in London, right next door to the Bank of England, and the massive bank with 1,500 employees, which I'm going to show you from the European side of the fence. Okay, so this is what the British government does. And I've told you already what the companies are that are spawned by Hollande, yeah, and the French connection, and they use exactly the same laundering vents. It's a scandal, and suddenly democracy's treasury is empty, and the cash is all over Strauss-Kahn and Lagarde's vicious, greedy, criminal world. And you've seen the videos I've made on the Royal Institute for International Affairs, all of the Queen's wealth, the 700 subsidiaries of Lonro alone, all of the massive castles that lady has, and all of the frauds that consume all of our government's transactions globally. Right then, so enough on, let's see what else there might be at the bottom. And this is just the Westminster Foundation registrations. There's the Alnerly Incorporations 1 Limited. If you look at them, you get 20. If you look at 1 and 2, you get 40, and so on and so on. Yeah, it goes right up, and I've not looked beyond the 4 figures that get you to 3,000 and something. It is sickening. Okay, and that's how many they've crashed out of how many they have handled already. And there you see that they were in their job for way less than 1 week. Okay, yeah, it's pump and dump and launder so that no one can get the benefit of democracy's funding from Britain. And that man is a legend in the wills sector. That's Naismith of Central Scotland, like John Lamont, an advisor to the Scottish Government on law and defrauding its people legally. Okay? And everywhere I report things, the family come to talk to me. The day after I reported John Naismith, look up John Naismith, Stuart Fair, George Lees and the Law Society in Scotland and fraud, and you will find out what they do. Yeah, all of them interlock with the places that Mrs Thatcher used to steal in the Finchley Road region, and the same criminals that run the laundering vents there. Yeah? And here we've got the Alnerly names again. Lord Ken Clark on the board. Yeah? That's Ken Clark, the minister without portfolio. Lord George Eiley McNeill Robertson, NATO and Dunblane scandals, the man who gave them the gun licence and then was gifted the head of the, I think it was the head of the UN actually. Okay? All of them disloyal Scotsmen, and that is the massive scandal that was the massacre in Dunblane. Gary William Hoon, Geoffrey William Hoon, Jeff Hoon, Michael Kevin Moore, James Spicer, not Timothy Spicer. The Tongues, yeah, in the House of Lords, Jenny Tongue was she prepared to talk to me actually. Several emails from her, quite a constructive woman. That's not her. Mrs Margaret Ann Ewing, yeah, the links to the royals in Balmoral and the pharma frauds. Joan Kate Swinson, a Facebook friend for a time. Prof Peter Frank, Professor Mary Calder, Professor Miles Anthony Wickstead, Sir Gavin Harry Laird, and an Armstrong, just for good measure. Right, let's get on to what I discovered about the links to the French and Alnerly. You can see it popping up all the time, just for less than a day. Okay, 27th of the 2nd to the 4th of the 3rd. Yeah, less than a week. Almost about the same amount of time that I was given to defend the last writ from the Jedburgh court. Yeah, and I've put hundreds of man hours, and I'm the most innocent man in this world, and they will soon know that they have done the wrong thing by persecuting me. Yet Miss Tom seemed quite embarrassed when I mentioned the sectioning and the fact that Dr. Mooney, who was on the board of Streets Ahead, is part of the same surgery as the sectioning team that have 3 times tried to have me sectioned for my insight into these massive globalised frauds. And there's a Mackay on it. Okay, let's get back to the other document, and there's the French Prime Minister. So you're getting quite comprehensive knowledge now of what everybody does. That's Francois Mitterrand, who launched the Development Bank in the 1990s, that is right in the heart of London. I'll show you that on the map if we have the time. Yeah, and we know a lot about de Gaulle, we know a lot about Pompidou, we know a lot about the links to the frauds and the genocides in North Africa. Yeah, there's Jacques Chirac, legends. Yeah, and all of them are sleazy, criminal, steal from their citizens people. There's Georges Pompidou, yeah, one of the slave masters enslaved by Foucault, yeah, and all of the killings in North Africa and all of the laundering of all of the drugs through Marseille. They're the people that are involved in that. There's Charles de Gaulle, spent his life safely in Buckinghamshire, in Hertfordshire, in Berkhamsted, yeah, immune from bombing, totally run by the Rothschilds, the whole of World War II. Oh, and there's Murvilles, as if the French connection to the Murrays could still be live and well even in the noughties. Okay, Union of Democrats for the Republic. Right, let's get on to the tabs and see what we can find about Alnerly on the French side of the channels. Right then, so so what you've got is, that's my website again with the coloured pictures. Here's the French connection. Both Hollande and ex-wife are socialists but have no liability in the theft. The English government theft is immense and has enough Ponzi's to consume the entire G20 in treasury fraud. All exposed thanks to Melrose and Porteous, who declared my divorce and the conflicts with Alex McCall to be an open and shut case, yeah. But when the conflicts with McCall arose and they could not deny them, they had to give me money back. Okay, Mr. Alwyn Frank Welsh, Mr. Alexander Hafner. Look at the numbers that they've crashed. Alan Donziad Alnerly Incorporations 1 and 2. Yeah, 2,692 crashed of the 3,257 for that one. Similar statistics for number 2 Limited. Yeah, registered in the heart of London, right next door to the Bank of England and right next door to the European Development Bank that I'm going to introduce you to for the first time, because I only found it this morning. No details on any of its directors, and all of them now specialise in running toxic debt pools yeah, for a pittance for all of their investors. If we were to make the banks that run the democracy public again, we could have a blissful, peaceful world. It could be work free and everybody could spend their life writing poems and artistic books or paintings, yeah, and all of it could be funded, but they prefer to do it by stealing and killing and siphoning it up to the 5,000 people that run these frauds. Christine Mary Hodgson. 2 great G8 governments. Okay, so there's, let's keep coming down, and then you've got the advertising space bit. Okay, so this is the links in the concept that these things are now being run on the basis of managing your debt pool efficiently. Okay, that's how secretive it is. That's the boardroom for one of the debt pool management companies. Yeah, and that's what you get if you try and probe a little bit deeper. Right, so this is a random, so I got, when I looked for Alnerly just as a search term, I got 36 million hits, and all of them refer me initially to incorporations 1 and 2, and this is the Bloomberg advertising event for them in New York where the earthquake occurred, and that is the mayor, Bloomberg, yeah, on the rich list, who runs it. And here are the company names for similar private companies by sector. Okay, and you've got, let's see if I can open that up a bit because it's too small for my so similar private companies by industry. A nice description. Yet there is no product but the transaction with the paper that passes on the debt pool and a token amount of interest from it, and everybody's in fucking debt except the 5,000 people at the top of society. Every government, every council. Hay Group UK Holdings Limited, Investment Services Scotland Limited, very interesting, got one office in Glasgow, one office in Edinburgh and one office in Aberdeen. GML Holdings Limited, WGH PLC, ILT Solutions Limited. Okay, let's just scroll down the advertising space sector, and there's one of the companies. I think it's the one in Technical Services Scotland Limited, of a listing of 3, and that one has no directors at all. The other 2 do. Okay, so that one I think was the Glasgow one, but I'm not terribly sure. And there's what happens when you try and look a little bit deeper. So that one that has no directors is 37 Melville Street, Edinburgh. and that postcode is no postcode. Okay, no assets, no net worth, just a laundering vent in times of crisis, or a declaration that there's nothing in your coffers when tax seasons come around, as they do 4 times a year now. And all of these scams are designed so that you can avoid all of your commitments to put anything at all into the Treasury. Central Investment Services Scotland Limited, 9 Albert Street, Aberdeen. Yet they've only got £1 million or so at the bank. Yet, because all of this is management token proceeds from the toxic debt pools that every one of the big banks run. And that's why it's so sad to see that the small sole traders at the very bottom reveal who actually is funding the fraud and is sucking everything that is solvent out of the economy. There it is. So there is the hit on the link to sole traders, and you've got Bank of Scotland Investment Service. That's where you can get money for nothing at the bank rate for these massive elite fraud companies, and all of them charge 5 to 10% of all of their customers, who then take the money under extreme pressure, and many of them collapse into the hands of those corrupted Big Four auditors. So do you see the scale of it, and that everyone now is trading in debt? And that means that no one can have any of their democratic activities funded anywhere across the world. And this is the first list of 19 companies when I searched for Alnerly. And it's quite astounding when you begin to open it up. Okay, so the Alnerly Incorporation is number 2. So what we've got are 19 directors, which are actually companies with different postcodes in the same part of London. It's probably in the same building. I've got the maps. Okay, so there's Alnerly 2. There's Alnerly 2 again, different postcodes. Alnerly 2, different address, different postcodes. Yeah, so these are the directors, 19 directors. They're not ficking directors, they are fraudulent companies and corporate HQs. Okay, do you get it? 19 of them in that one place, under the one name, and there are no directors otherwise, although some of the companies in Scotland that you've just seen do have directors, slightly different. Okay, and then you go up to 40. Okay, and that is for the searches on Company Check for the same companies labelled Alnerly 1 and Alnerly 2. And here we see the long lists that you find. Okay, look at the statistics at the top. Companies 2, now directors 41. Okay, still just 2 companies, 41 directors now. Okay, and where is it? 1 Bishops Square, London, E1 6AD. That's Bishops Square. That's the Christianity fraud, and we're right next door in Cheapside to St Paul's Cathedral, and all of the scams of Prince Charles's financial advisor, who runs all 800 of those Ponzi shelves of Longrow. Okay, sole traders Zippo, European companies Zippo, companies 2. Yeah, and all I did was to enter the increase the number of digits that I'm allowed to search for when I enter the search terms. Alnerly with 2 stars this time. Okay, right then. And then if you want to, you can inflate the numbers of Ponzi shelves to 3,000 plus, which I've done in this tab. There it is. Companies now, an advanced search. When I look for, with 4 digits in the search box, I look for the number of companies, and what do we get? We get 436 with only 46 directors, which are actually the places. And sole traders there are Zippo, and European companies there are Zippo. So can you see how unaccountable the people that run this are for what is happening in their transaction. There are no names of identifiable people or people you can correspond with, or if you're in the serious fraud office, you cannot bang anyone up. It's really clever, like the French system. Okay, and let's now go to the maps and show you where Cheapside is, and where the Jack the Ripper murders occurred, and where the Brady Bunch cemetery is, and the Rothschilds Jewish memorial cemeteries. Okay, there's Old Spitalfields Market. Yeah, Spittle is a place close to Berwick, and I was talking to my dad about that only yesterday. It used to be a Sunday school outing. Yeah, the church is a massive fraud. There's the Whitechapel Gallery, there is the Liverpool Street Underground, there is Bank, the Underground, there is Cornhill, which is right next door to Coldstream in John Lamont's constituency, and it's right next to the Bank of England in Cheapside. Yeah, that's owned by the Rothschilds since Waterloo in 1815. Yeah, and the Brady Cemetery is up here somewhere, Brady Street. There's Whitechapel where the murders were, and the Thames is here, and the Parliament building where the Westminster Foundation frauds are is just down the river. Right then, and there's a lower resolution image to show you that here we have the European Bank for Reconstruction and Developments right next door to Bishop's Square. Yeah, so do you see the utility of that? You've got the French government and the British government able to liaise with the European Bank for Reconstruction. There are no directors on that. Yeah, it's one of those secretive ones. Yeah, there is no details of who runs it. It employs 1,500 people, and it is a non-limited company with no directorates claimed, but probably for the reasons of secrecy and the insolvency threat for the super elites that we heard about, and the threshold of how much you have to invest to get that status has dropped from 225,000 euros or francs to 35,000. Yeah, and now it's just a giveaway if you're in the inner circle. And there is the square for the bishops, and St Paul's is just up here somewhere, I think. With the girls' school run by the man who is the financial advisor to Prince Charles. Okay, and this is the one that is on the board, Nicolas Dufourcq, registered address 42 Rue Hanaï, Barbous, Paris, and this is the bank that was launched by President Hollande for a laugh. Okay, and you've got Brits all over it, but because it collapses when you register it now, yeah, you cannot read out. There's the Alnerly linkage. Do you see it? So this is the French connection, the new bank created by the socialist Prime Minister, with his wife immediately planted on the board, immediately before he gets to fund a couple of prostitutes, and I forget what you call the woman that lives in your house that you rent for her. I forget what that is. Is it a courtesan or something? Not very sophisticated in the sexual sector. Yeah, and what you've got is a massive set of covers for just pumping money into the woman who's called Mrs. Hollande, as was, but she is also a socialist, on the take from all of these massive mutual banking operations, strictly secret. Picards, Dufourcq, Giraud, Paul David Spence, Mr. Vincent Grimond, that could be Joe Grimond's kind, Mr. John Frederick Williams, Wanadu Limited, Johan van der Kruis, Sian Williams, and there is David Charles Melville. Remember, the Scottish connection in the same sector is in one of the Melville streets or the Melville squares in Edinburgh. Okay, and the Cap Gemini thing is really quite stunning. So the socialist thing is, here's the CGS Holdings Limited. It's the CAP issues. So CAP Gemini SA, presumably South Africa, shows you that when they issued the shares, they were worth 530,000. When this was drafted, they were worth 531 million. Quite a decent return on an investment, isn't it? Yeah, and there were 58 million shares released at a penny apiece. No, 0.1 of a penny, I think. So it's not £1 per share. Okay, so they're doing okay, and you can see that the joke is that they've got ownership of 105.26% of the share release, and that's impossible. Like having a global sovereign debt crisis with a bank balance and a balance sheet that says everyone is in debt and there are no creditors, and all of it is just a massive joke. And it cripples the people, it cripples the competency of the democracy. And there is Dufaurc and his registered address at 42 Rue Henri Barbus, Paris 75005, France. Director number 9077-22154. That's all we can know. Yet he's the CEO at that new company, launched by Hollande, with the missus getting the massive take. No one's allowed to know who else is on the board, for reasons that you now understand. Okay? And there is that same data. Okay, so quickly before the batteries run out, I can take you into the European Bank that is right next door to the Bishop's Square in London, right next door to the Bank of England. And this is the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the history is written below. The EBRD was set up in haste to meet the challenge of an extraordinary moment in Europe's history, the collapse of communism in its east. Yeah, that's Miss Merkel's, where he was headed in the plane when the lightning strike occurred. In fact, a mere 18 months elapsed between the first mooting of the idea of a European Bank by President François Mitterrand of France in October 1989 and its opening for business with headquarters in London in April 1991. Have I convinced you that if you look up the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, or EBRD, or any of the derivatives or any of the divisions of those titles, that you find nothing at all on company check? It's a scandal. There's no European directors, there's no non-limited companies, there are no any other listings, there are no personnel who you're able to discern who's in charge and how it gets carved up. Yeah, this is not the one launched by Hollande. It was launched by his predecessor, and goodness knows whether or not Mitterrand thinks he's a socialist, a fascist, or yeah, or like the Lib Dems, totally politically neutral. All of them are greedy, sad bastards lining their pockets from their people. And France is alleged to be a revolutionary nation, but it is hopelessly dismembered by the Masons all over the country. And the joke that is the the French-Scottish Old Alliance is really sickly, and we're imposed all the rugby coaches and all their sickly people. Yeah, and it is pathetic, and they are really capable sportsmen. Yeah, I've played there, but because everything is geopolitical cover-up, all of that is just futile, and none of the results are meaningful in any way other than with the publications that end up in the paper or in the news bulletin that night. History of the EBRD, group photograph of heads of state of the founding. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development was established to build a new post-Cold War era in Central and Eastern Europe. It has since played a historic role and gained unique expertise in fostering change in the region and beyond. Okay, so 1989. When did we brutalise the Balkans? Yeah? When do you see any need for reconstruction in peacetime? Yeah? This is a legacy of what used to be the European Bank. That's now become the ECB. They've moved on. Tier after tier of profiteering organisation appears in place of everything that could be the prosperous democracy that actually runs the country conscientiously but not as a fraud project. Okay, and the references to the Arab Spring and all of the revival all across the Holy Land, all of it is manipulated from the mind control and political control centres, and the European boss Barroso gets trained in Georgetown by Kissinger, and the whole thing is a stitch-up. And here's one of the women on the links for Nicolas Duford, or whatever his name was, and she's called Christine Mary Pickles, but when you open her on his list, yeah, you do not get that. You get someone else, and I've never seen that before. We could have a look for that if you want, but she's registered at 10 Lucerne Mews, London, West 84 AD, and that's the Pickles name that is so often abused in the context that he puts his hand down women's skirts at the Lib Dem rally. I forget where they hold it. It might be Brighton. Yeah, do you remember that incident? And do you see now why these people get reared up into public consciousness to cover up the sick truth about what happens? I just wish, before we stop, I could find the statement that Mrs. Hollande was gifted the bank. President of the Regional Council, National Assembly, Minister of Ecology, Sustainable Development and Energy, all of it, all the global warming scams will become a tax on breathing really soon. Walls, Cabinet, Congress. Here it is. Thank goodness. Okay. Her attempt to win a seat in the National Assembly in the June 2012 parliamentary elections was unsuccessful. Françoise Hollande, the current president of France, is the father of her 4 children. She was appointed by him to the vice chair directorship of the Banque Publique d'Investment, reference 13. No one's allowed to know who else is on it, whether or not she still prevails there, how much they draw down as salaries, but you can see that they're doing okay. That's Strauss-Kahn. Yeah, there is no earthquake in that particular little scene there. So that's the declaration, that she was gifted that, and then all of a sudden they have to break up their marriage. But it is a very, very lucrative deal. I'm guessing there for reasons that you now understand. And Alnerly is really, really sinister. That's 2 of the massive G8 governments that run the world by violence, war crimes, and all of the manipulation of all of the political base in every country. Ségolène Royal, 2007 meeting with the socialist Dominique Strauss-Kahn, and she's the best dressed over 50s in the country. And goodness knows what the kids make of it, but they will get really big birthday presents, one would imagine. All of them are doing okay, and Lagarde is typically cynical. She comes in and she just tells the people to keep paying their taxes. I'm going to sign off and take a walk. John Lamont, I hope that you can see that you are now complicit in massive issues for our country and in Europe, yeah, and those things that you are now complicit in are actually war crimes, and I want you to get out of that denial mode that you are in and get Scotland back into the right place. We are capable together of leading the country to be the template for global democracy, but not if you take the cowardly route that you are currently taking, and I've asked you those questions publicly in public meetings, and I've now got all of those papers that declare that signed by dozens of witnesses in your constituency. Good luck with the next election.